Hello, primary class. This is your back of the page story from Paul Says Goodbye. This is part 2, Escape in a Sack part 2. Oh, I'm so excited to find out what happens. Well, remember, little Antoinette and her mother and father were trying to escape from their country. They were Christians in their country. Christians were cruelly punished. One night, father told Antoinette they would leave the next morning. When morning came, little Antoinette's mother and father brought 2 large sacks, in which they always carried their vegetables to market. Antoinette watched as they filled one of them with cabbages and other vegetables. She could hardly wait to begin the long trip on the big ship to the new country that father had told her about. "I never get to go to market with you, father," she said. "That's right," father smiled. "It's too far for you to walk, so we always leave you at home." "Will I get to ride on our donkey?" Antoinette asked as she watched her parents finish filling the first sack with vegetables. "No," father replied. "We want people to think that we're doing everything the way we have always done. They must think that we have left you at home as usual." Then father told their precious little Antoinette their plan. "No one must see you. We are going to put you into the sack that's always on the other side of the donkey's back. People will think that the sack is full of vegetables, and that we have left you home like we always have done. You may take your little dolly with you, and you must be very still and quiet." "Oh," Antoinette said as she looked at her parents. She couldn't help feeling a bit scared. She was glad that she would have her dolly with her, and that her mother and father would be right beside her, too. But would she be able to stay quiet and still as she rode along in the big sack? Before father loaded the donkey, they knelt and prayed. They asked Jesus to keep them safe as they left their little home, and they asked him to help them as they traveled to the faraway country where they would worship God without being afraid. Then, for the very last time, they looked at their dear little home in the farm. There were tears in Mother's eyes, but she bravely wiped them away and smiled. Father carefully picked up the sacks and loaded them onto their donkey. The sack with the vegetables was on one side, and the sack with little Antoinette was on the other side of the donkey's back. Mother and father walked beside little Antoinette's sack as they started down the road away from their dear little home. Inside the big sack, little Antoinette hugged her dolly tightly. When there was no one close, her parents spoke softly to her. They praised her for being such a good little girl. When they passed people on the way, her parents greeted them as they always did. No one would have guessed that anything was different from usual. Then father spoke in a quiet voice, and what he said made little Antoinette's heart beat faster. "There are soldiers coming down the road toward us," he said. "Be very still, Antoinette." To be continued.